Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Fintech Fridays. I'm Brian View, President and Chief Operating Officer at FinLocker, and I'm super excited to have Josh Dobson from Blueprint Home Loans join us today. Josh, welcome to my little podcast.
Thank you, Brian, and I love the intro. I love the title, too. You know, I've been wanting one of those myself.
It's kind of geeky, kind of, funny. There's a couple other Fintech Fridays I've found out there. They're not necessarily focused on kind of the real estate and mortgage vertical. So for now, I'm okay with my my trademark, I think.
No, I think it's a great place to be, especially because there's so much technology going into, especially financing homes, right?
Yeah. Well, I want to dive right in, man, because you're doing some unique things. I've been watching you on all the different social media channels, which we'll get into in a moment, but. For the audience that's just meeting Josh for the first time, let's just talk a little bit about who you are, what you like to do, how you got in the business, and just let us know who you are.
Well, hey, thank you for having me. I mean, honestly, it's been a whirlwind, right? So I've been doing this since 2004 when I graduated college. I was taking a year off before I was going to go to law school. I had taken my LSATs. I had gotten accepted to a couple different colleges. And it was a part-time gig to make some money so that maybe I didn't have to borrow as much money to become an attorney.
Yeah.
But I fell in love with the industry. So I fell in love with doing home loans. For me, it started out as just being an assistant, and kind of learning the nuts and bolts of what goes into making a loan. And I think that's where I learned a lot of the real difficult parts of how to make things work and help people get into homes. And I think that's where a lot of the passion that drives me today, right? So we were just talking about that. I've been doing this since 2004, and my new venture, or at least where I've really devoted a lot of my time and energy, has been social media.
Yeah.
And so with all of my social media accounts, we're trying to educate. And a lot of that is focused because there's a lot of misinformation out there. So there's a lot of different things that go on in the process, whether people don't actually get to understand how the process works, or they don't actually know what the guidelines are because they've been told by this one person that it's this, and then another person this. So when we're educating based off of the base guidelines. We try to avoid talking about overlays, which a lot of lenders have, and explaining those to customers. But at the end of the day, it becomes about education and then helping as many people as we can. And I think social media has been probably my favorite thing that I've been able to do so far, because I've been able to reach so many people. And when you're having conversations with people and they just want to become a homeowner, they just want to put a roof over their head, they just want to avoid having to pay rent and having rent rise on them, and really start the journey of home ownership and wealth building. And so, it's something that I really am passionate about, because my grandmother became a real estate agent before I was even born, right? So I grew up in a real estate family, and she was the first woman real estate agent in the Central Valley of California. So she dealt with a lot of discrimination and issues with her, but she never let that stop her. And what was great about it is she made a lot of big decisions that during her time women didn't do. She bought their first rental property, and she didn't ask. She didn't ask permission. She earned her commission. She bought a rental property. She told her husband, "Hey, this is what I'm doing, and this is why I'm doing it." And my grandfather, he had the atypical job. He was going to get his pension. He was going to get his retirement, and that's what he was riding on. And he was very content with that. But what he didn't account for was what was going to happen in the changes in the financial markets.
Yeah.
So that pension that he was going to rely on didn't show up. He didn't have that. And they ended up retiring and being able to live off the rental properties that she had purchased. So it was just a huge inspiration to me. And being able to be in this space and help people, educate them, give them tips on how to build generational wealth, but also give them access to the tools to help them, right? Because so many of the consumers that we talk to on a daily basis, and I'm sure you've seen this, there's a lot of they're not educated on financial literacy. And I know we connected, and I feel honored that you gave me the chance to be able to be a part of this app. To really help people, because I think it's a great tool where I can use that to supplement our education pieces, to also give them some tools to help build that and build on it and get better and to kind of change the narrative of, the consumer who just doesn't know what to do.
Yeah. And I love that, that you're anchored on education. And my observation, you've got a lot of followers on your social media channels, and we'll get to some of those numbers if you're willing to share. But
oh, sure,
there's big numbers, and while it'd be great if you were able to help every one of those secure financing, the reality of it is you're going to get a fraction of them. But what I see in the content that you're putting out is your passion that comes through in the messaging, and what's super cool from my seat is that you are helping thousands, arguably hundreds of thousands of people with education, and you're going to ultimately, like I said, work with a fraction of those in the context of your day job, right?
Yeah,
so that's super cool that that you get the passion, you have the passion to do that, and you're willing to give to others to help them to better understand.
I think it's been one of the things that I think has been hard for people to actually grasp, right? Because they're so used to people being salespeople, and I do no sales. For me, it's just education. In fact, there are several people that I've helped, right? So I've taught them what they can do to build up their credit. I've shown them what they can do to become a homeowner, and they've worked with somebody else to get their home loan to buy a house. Now, obviously, it hurts a little bit because that's something that I'm doing for free, right? So when I'm doing this and our programs that we offer, they're all free. The only time I make money is when I close a transaction. But that doesn't bother me, and I congratulate them every single time. And so I think that's something that's lacking in our industry, and I'm very fortunate to be able to entertain that.
Yeah, so I've been in this industry since the early 90s, and it's always been very transactional in nature. And I think to some degree, when you talk about the role of the traditional loan officer, most times 90+% of the time it's 100% commission type role. And so one would surmise that, you're going to have some transactional focus because you don't do transactions, you don't feed your family. We get that.
Yep.
But what's been cool to see in the industry is kind of what I'll say the newer generation of originators, whatever that means, still has to get the transactions done. Again, you got to feed the family, but there's a focus on building relationships, and hopefully enough of those relationships translate into a monetizable activity. But at the end of the day, it's really adding value, providing education content. I mean, to me, it's, if I could do it all over again, granted, when I started, there was no such thing as social media. People still put ads in the paper for their products.
The yellow pages.
Yeah, we didn't have text back then. So that's a good segue kind of into the tech stack and kind of how I would equate you as more of a modern mortgage originator in terms of kind of how you think about the process. So, maybe share with the audience kind of some of your best practices around the technologies that you partner with that ultimately help you facilitate the transactions that you're doing.
Right. So, I mean, when we're talking about the scale at which we're doing this, it's important that you use technology. Obviously, I'm not looking for technology to replace me. There are some AI and apps that are, that can teeter on the fact that they might be able to do what I do. There's some limitations, and I'm not too worried about it. But we definitely started off very early on in the process trying to get as much of the technology integrated into the systems and the plans and the processes that we do to try to help, quantify and then also scale what we do. So early on, I partnered with Andrew Pollack over at Lead Pops because I think that was probably the most important part of it is we needed a way for us to be able to get the contact information, right? So, lead funnels are a huge deal. Lots of different companies use them. And he was kind of early on as far as the mortgage space for us and lead funnels. And he had designed such a wonderful product And we, went right into it and started using it on our websites. And as we've progressed and we've gotten further into the social media and some of the other stuff, it's been a great tool for us because obviously now we can send people to those lead funnels, capture their information, and that information then can transfer over to us. Now, before it was just going into a CRM and we were manually replying to every text message because obviously we wanted to automate as much of it as possible because we're talking, I think in the last 24 hours, we had about 250 people reach out in one of the lead funnels, right? So that's a lot. And for a loan officer who's, again, like you said, transactional, has to close loans to be able to make money, there's not a lot of time to be texting and communicating with them to be able to then close transactions and keep those going. So we've partnered with a couple of different other tools. So we're rolling out with Total Expert, right? So Total Expert's going to be our CRM, and obviously they integrate with Lead Pops. The other tool that we're going to be adding to that is your app, right? The FinLocker app. And the reason why we've really decided to partner with the three of you and do this is because of your guys' willingness to integrate with one another and your collaborations. So your collaboration is going to make my business and my job a lot easier because, again, we're not focused on just the transaction. We're focused on the consumer and educating and helping them. So we can now generate the interest, lead it to Lead Pops, which then funnels it into Total Expert. And once we've done the initial consultation, we've done the soft credit pull, because that's another great tool that we have now is a soft credit report. With the soft credit report, we can run Credit Expert, credit analyzers, so we can actually show clients how they can improve their credit scores. But also now we can link them up with FinLocker, which gives them the ability to do all the wonderful things that FinLocker does, right? I mean, the list is too much to even list here in this podcast. There wouldn't be enough time, but it gives us the ability to automate and to tech stack, right, to be able to do a lot more and help a lot more people, but also give them the tools that they need to either work on their credit to improve their situation so that they can buy a house, whether they need to start saving for a down payment. So again, going back to the education on financial literacy, budgeting, right? So we can teach them how to budget with the FinLocker app. And what's great is we'll be able to use that and integrate it with Total Expert, which is our CRM. So there's a one-point contact for us. So we're not going back and forth. I mean, trust me, right now we're texting on our phone. We're typing on a CRM text message, emails. We're doing all that fun stuff, and it's a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun. But I can't wait to be able to kind of have it centrally located, be able to communicate through Total Expert. Obviously, we haven't done it yet, but we're working on the integration now. And then yesterday, we just finished up our conversation with BotSplash. And we're going to be bringing them in, and they're going to help us on the front end with a lot of the automation, with the text messages, with the leads coming in, and operating that way. So we're really excited about that. And again, it's more about improving the workflow and the process, but also being able to scale it so that we're not losing the human touch, but we're also able to communicate and connect with everybody. I mean, because that's one of the biggest things I get irked about the most when on social media is finding out somebody who hasn't been communicated with or who hasn't been helped. So, I encourage all of my followers to comment, hey, I haven't heard from you. And I'll go back in, and because of our processes and because of our connections, we can actually see what kind of communications have been done, the whole thing. And so it's really important that we're doing that, because that's, at the end of the day, that's really what this is about.
That's right. Well, I love that you're holding yourself accountable on that audience, to the entire audience, not just that single person. That's a pretty cool thing, and it's not just admirable. It speaks to, I think it speaks to the level of professionalism that your audience can expect, and of course, building that trust. And I want to get into this next, because I think this is the most fascinating part to me. The tech is cool because I sit kind of in that.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I'll tease this out for you. You may not even have this knowledge yet. The FinLocker integration with Total Expert is set up in such a way that, let's assume one of your followers responds to a message or that, reacts to a message, whether they click a call to action that's on your post that, download the Blueprint app or whatever you're calling it.
Yeah.
Or they get into a funnel and then they download the app. If someone starts with downloading the FinLocker app, their act of creating the app will automatically create a contact in Total Expert for you.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, and now that communication string is created so that as that user is doing things in your app, creating a budget, credit score changes, property value changes, all the things that may be happening, those data points are now passed directly to that record that was created. So I think it's going to create some super cool opportunities for you to be even more hyper personal on the contact that you do make with those folks down the road.
Yeah, I'm like I said, I'm completely over the moon and very excited about getting this all integrated and working for us. Because like I said, it's you just started talking about it, right? The relational aspect of this, and I think that's for me. My focus is the relationships.
Yeah.
I'm more concerned about having a conversation with a real life person and helping them in whatever way I can.
Right.
And so that's why it's kind of cool to be able to add these tools to it so that I can help those people even more.
Right on. Well, let's talk about the great things you're doing. I don't want to call it work because I watch a lot of your videos. There's no way you could consider that work. You're having a lot of fun.
Well, what did they say? It's not work if you're having fun. And I love doing the social media stuff. I get to be myself. I get to be a goofball. I can have fun with it. And so I think that's I was reading somewhere where somebody had mentioned that they have some studies done that show that influencers usually have a lot more dopamine. They're a lot happier because they're just enjoying creating content. And I think that's what's a lot of fun about what I do now. So it's a lot of fun, definitely.
So let's maybe peel back the onion a little bit if you're willing to. Maybe you don't want to share the secret sauce. I don't know. But I'm putting you on the spot, so I guess you're going to have to.
That's all right. I have nothing to hide. And that's another thing that I've learned. Gary Vee brought that up. He's like, I will tell you everything that there is to know about what I do because unfortunately 90 to 95% of you won't do it.
Yeah.
And I've got nothing to hide. This is all public knowledge. In fact, I communicate on a regular basis with several different loan officers and real estate agents, and they can attest to that on my social media accounts.
I love it. So let's maybe start with the scale of the audience you've created. Kind of roughly, what does that look like today?
So I want to say it's a little over 120,000 on Instagram. We've built up about 43,000 on TikTok. I haven't checked Facebook in a really long time.
Yeah.
But honestly, I mean, this is we're going on 7-8 months of really working hard at this and focusing on it. Yeah, that's it.
Wow.
I've been on there for a lot longer than that, but I really didn't start doing this and focusing my energy and my time and my effort and have a plan, right? So that's the other thing I think a lot of influencers or people who want to become influencers or use social media, they lack is a plan. I was actually just having this conversation with a realtor yesterday. He was asking, different questions, and he was frustrated because he was looking and his views weren't up, right? He had 200 views on several videos, and he loved the video, and he thought this should be doing a lot better. And what I explained to him, I said, look, how many leads have you gotten? How many transactions have you done on social media because of your videos? And he gave me his number, and it was 4. And I said, okay. And how long have you been doing this? He's like, oh, I've been doing it for 6 months. So you're telling me that getting 4 transactions in 6 months isn't worth, as a real estate agent, what you're doing? He goes, well, no, it is. I go, so here's what I try to explain to everybody when we're talking about social media. Stop worrying about the vanity metrics.
Yeah.
Those will come, right? Focus on your content and have a plan, right? And so the other part about the plan is that knowing what works and what doesn't. And so we're always tracking. We're tweaking content. We're tweaking messages. We're changing songs, we're changing different things. And so that part of it is just us testing. And as things are successful and we can track that success, we then take that and reuse it or refunnel it or redistribute it or just, replay it. And I think that's kind of where a lot of people miss the boat. They're so focused on the views, the likes, the comments. Yeah. And early on, I had worked with a coach, and she was out of Canada. She had knew nothing about mortgages in the United States. In fact, she touted herself as the female CEO social media influencer coach. But I had found her and I'd liked what she had to say. And so I hired her as a coach and we got into it. And at the end of it, we learned a lot about each other. But one of the things that she helped me understand is that if you're focused on the content and you're focused on the end user, the consumer, it doesn't matter what you do, what the metrics say, you're a success if you're helping just one person.
Yeah, the way I think about this, Josh, is let's just take that one person. So let's say you create a video. What is the average video? How long does it take you to prepare it and record it? So
it takes us probably about 10 or 15 seconds to record. The content itself, we're spitfiring ideas all the time, but just the talking ones, it takes us maybe 5 minutes to prepare something that we feel like hits all the points and communicates what we want to communicate. And then the editing probably takes about 30 minutes. So I would say probably about 45 minutes total from start to finish on one specific video.
So let's just call it an hour, just so people don't lose their mind doing the math. Yeah. And you get one deal out of that 1 hour. How many real estate professionals and loan officers wouldn't trade 1 hour of work for a loan for a transaction? Come on. Yeah. No,
and it's been truly it's been a blessing to see kind of how this has played out. Because when we started, this wasn't something, don't get me wrong. There's several influencers in our space that are in the mortgage space and they do a great job. And I definitely wasn't trying to recreate the wheel or become, this giant influencer. My goal was to just try to help as many people as I could. And it's been great just to be able to expand our reach and to be able to have conversations. We talk with hundreds of people every day. And the best part about it is that when you get them to come back onto your social media accounts and comment or share their story with everybody else. And I actually had one of my clients that I think it was a 7-day process. Yeah, so I saw that. She basically found me on social media. We talked. We figured out that we could do the loan for her. We showed her how we could do it. She literally put herself in contract the very next day. And normal transaction time, 30 days, but literally within 7 days of her reaching out to us, she was in contract to buy a house and she got her house. And that's after she'd been told no, she couldn't do it. And she felt like she was a little bit defeated. Yeah, that was that. So those are the stories that I'm watching you do that are the coolest, is where you're talking about a successful, you've turned around a deal where someone was told no and maybe they lost hope, and for whatever reason, divine intervention, maybe they saw your post and reached out, and lo and behold, you guys were able to help them. I think those are the cool stories when you can point to, real use cases where people can be helped. And I think you hit it on it earlier. It's our industry has, everyone has a set of overlays that they may put on transactions. We see this in VA loans all the time, right? Oh, yeah. Where there is no credit score limit or bar to clear on VA loans, yet veterans are told often that they can't qualify because their credit score is too low. Yeah, and I think that's the other aspect of it is that, like, I'm transparent. Like, I tell people, there's no minimum credit score for a VA. I require a 580. But if you don't have a 580 and I feel like you can get a loan with the VA, because again, there's certain things that go into it. It's not just your credit score. I'll refer them over to somebody that I know that can do it. Right. So, I mean, I think we just did another video post about a client. He's a past client of mine. We couldn't help him. And even though I couldn't help him, I knew that the deal could get done. So I contacted one of my other buddies who's on social media, and he connected me with wholesale. And they took it over and they got it closed for him. And, it's just one of those things. I'd rather help them get the deal done, even though I don't get paid, right? Because at the end of the day, it's about them.
Yeah, I love it. So we've got a few minutes left here. I think there's a lot of, so I'm 55, right? I'm kind of in that older age limit in our industry, but I'm talking to a lot of originators around the country of all different ages. And even the old, graybeards like myself are trying to figure out what's the next way to kind of, build next year's, client list and database. And so a lot of them are kind of figuring out, maybe I got to go do this social media thing. And what's the best advice you give someone that's just getting started in this space?
Same advice I gave my buddy Kevin Blair. He's over at Elemental, and he's in the older generation as well. And he's doing great, and I love the success he's got. But what it was just staying consistent, and then focus on the pain points, right? So we, as loan officers or in the mortgage space, are problem solvers. I wear multiple hats, and one of those hats is a firefighter. I like to say, putting out fires on files, helping people overcome problems, right? And so what I explained to him, and kind of what I was trying to teach him, is that these pain points are being experienced by these consumers on a daily basis, regular basis. And if you can touch on those pain points and you can teach them how to overcome those pain points, or at least what can be done to overcome those pain points, you're going to connect with them, right? And then by connecting with them, they're going to connect with you, and they're going to reach out to you and ask for your advice, to talk to you about how you can help them and their pain points. So if you focus on the pain points that that are out there, right? So we all experience the most recent pain point, interest rates being sky high, right? And that was on everybody's mouth. But then we started talking about the things that you can do to overcome the higher interest rates, like buy downs and, whatever it is. And so those are the kinds of things that I try to explain when you're starting in social media. Stay consistent, find the pain points that you want to address and that you want to become the problem solver for, and do that, right? Give them that information. And lastly, you just have to be able to give up the information, just share, and not expect anything in return. Right.
That's probably the hardest thing for people to, I think it's the getting started, and then, knowing that the law of averages is going to be a little bit against you in terms of the reach you're going to have and what you're going to get back. But maybe one last point, because you said this a couple times, stay consistent.
Yeah.
What does that mean for you? Like, what does consistent look like for you as it relates to what you're doing with your brand and your messaging?
Okay. So, there's several different aspects of staying consistent. So first, I consistently post. So I'm consistently posting 3 times a day on TikTok. I'm consistently posting 2 times a day on Instagram. So you can expect to go out and find a new post from me daily on those accounts. The other aspect is I'm consistently going live on TikTok. I'll probably be consistently going live on IG. I just haven't quite figured out the timing on that. But that's the consistent part of posting, right? And then the other part about being consistent is engaging, because I think a lot of people in our industry, they just spit out a bunch of videos, right? A bunch of content, and they sit there and they wait for it to give them some sort of return. But that doesn't work, right? The algorithm wants to see you on their app. So if you're just posting, you're on their app for 30 seconds to post your video. The algorithm's not going to be like, oh man, I really want to get this information out to everybody because it's going to hit home. They don't care. They want to see you on the app as well. So consistency for me means I go out and I comment on other people's posts. I engage them in their comments. I engage everybody in my comments. So I do a video that has, I think we have one right now that's on like 1,000 different comments. And that's just within the last 3 days. I have replied to every single comment, and I will go back and I will double check and make sure that I've replied to everybody's comments, because that's being consistent, right? And so that's kind of where I talk about consistency. That's kind of what I mean. It's like the engagement and the posting. So
to me, if I just put it into kind of the context of a traditional loan officer's time blocking, this activity is something that you need to plan for and do. Now, maybe you're doing it fluidly throughout the day, but it's still it's a daily activity that just has to happen. No different than in 10 years ago, if you're going to cold call 20 realtors, right?
And I think you just hit it on the head, right? This is just a new way of creating business and marketing, right? So instead of the traditional, I'm going to spend an hour a day cold calling, I'm going to spend an hour a day on social media.
Yeah, love it. Well, Josh, we went through my 25-minute time that I like to block. This was
well, I'm glad I could get you enough content that we could have the conversation, man. I was looking forward to this. I love having conversations like this because it's good for my soul, and I love conversing with people, especially people in the industry. And I love what you guys are doing at FinLocker. I'm very appreciative, like I said, of the opportunity to be able to use the app, and I look forward to being able to help you grow it and grow it together.
Amen to that. Well, Josh, thank you so much for joining my little podcast. To the audience, we'll see you all next Friday. Have a great weekend.